Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Dr. I Checks In. And I just realized I'm literally sitting with my back to a window, which makes this really difficult to watch. So I'm going to move. On the move. See, improv. We're live here, folks. This is how we do it. This might be better. All right. Here we go. Yeah. All right. I know I'm boring everybody. We're 30 seconds in and you've heard no content. But hey, we're a work in progress here. It's kind of how we roll. So Mr. D'Ercole recently posted some reflections about teaching and everything, and he opened up talking about lecturing, and basically how lecturing has gotten a bad rap over the past several years. There's truth to that. You know, it's interesting. On tomorrow's edition of the Rockstar Principles podcast, John and I are going to discuss an article that talks about we don't need to innovate teaching. Now, the article is written kind of tongue-in-cheek, and basically what the author of that article is calling for is a balance, some middle road. And he's saying that there's effective teaching practices that we know work, but there's a lot of unproven stuff that just looks glitzy and glamorous and tech-savvy that's out there too, that's not proven. Well, that answer, I think, lies somewhere in the middle, obviously. Now, am I a huge fan of lecturing? Myself, as a learner, I actually learn from lecturing. Like, that's a way that that works for me. Now, that means the lecturer's got to be a good orator, interesting, good content, good delivery, allows for processing time and reflection. There's tons that goes into being a good lecturer. However, I think we have to be careful because while lecturing and direct instruction is obviously a tool that is time-tested, it's been around forever, and there is research to support it when done right, it's also a very easy excuse. Because if you're a teacher who for 180 days just gets up and lectures, then you're not a good lecturer, you're just lazy. All right, and that's the bottom line. You're not going to convince me otherwise. All right, if you're not putting in the time to try to engage kids in different ways, then you're not doing your job. Now, that being said, is there a place for lectures? Absolutely. My gosh, storytelling is the oldest form of communication we have in civilization. It's one of the things that makes us human. Before the written word, our history as human beings was passed down through stories. And then someone who would be the village storyteller, the person who was most gifted in that area. Just so happens teachers tend to be the best storytellers, all right? So there's a chance you're a great lecturer or a good lecturer, or you can become a good lecturer. But even the best lecturers are not maximizing the potential of themselves and their students if all they do is lecture. So I think it stands to reason that those who are great at lecturing probably want to do it more often and probably have to check themselves more often. To some degree, I think that goes back to the philosophy that I've always kept in coaching, in that I don't always look at a coach and say, I want a coach who was once a tremendous athlete and tremendously successful at their sport. Because someone with a tremendous amount of talent isn't necessarily the person who had to work the hardest, have the best technique, be smart in the fundamentals, learn the strategy, as well as players who maybe had average ability and became better or very good because they worked hard at it, all right, developed those skill sets. Plus, most people, you look at most students, if you look at the bell curve, they fit into the main part of the bell curve, which means they are average, all right? So if we can't look and identify with learners in some way, whether it's empathetically or sympathetically or as just having experience in that area, if we can't look at them and understand where they're coming from because we were just really good students or we learned from lecturing or we were whatever, we're behind the eight ball there. Sometimes I think the best teachers are our teachers who maybe had learning disabilities themselves and had to, use a variety of methods to become better and things like that. Obviously, if you've been watching or if you're going to start watching and you've gotten to this point, what you've seen so far in each of Sill's classes that he's put live on there, lecturing is just a small part of what happens in that world. And, I guess I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. I think it's given us enough to ponder at this point, and we're nearing the 5-minute mark, so I'm going to kind of close it off there. So if you are a teacher watching this, think about it. How much of your time in class is spent lecturing? Are your lecturers just giving content, or are you posing thought-provoking, deep questions that are making kids think about things? Are you connecting it to contemporary topics? What purpose is your lecture serving? Is it getting to the end result that you're trying to get at, which is deep learning for students? Good questions.